Well, good and bad news to share with you guys today. Let's start with the bad news. We are in the middle of a recession. We have had 2 negative quarters of GDP growth, and inflation is literally continuing to spiral out of control. We also have the fact that the Biden administration is refusing to accept the fact that we are in a recession. Therefore, he's not coming up with any solutions whatsoever to fix it, because I believe there is no solution being given by the Biden administration, and it's completely done on purpose. I am convinced that Biden's entire goal in his administration is to destroy our country from within. Sadly, that is really how I feel. The good news is a United States congressman has just introduced a life-saving bill, which he's dubbed the Gold Standard Bill. Completely is exactly how it sounds. However, I don't think it has a chance in Congress. Not to mention, on top of it all, the IMF has just issued a very eerie warning. But before I dive into it, I want to tell you about my brand new sponsor, ScreamSiren.com. As you know, violent crime is at an all-time high, especially if you live in Democrat-run cities. But the good news is that there is a way that you can protect yourself and your loved ones from an attack. As you know, an attacker's worst enemy is attention brought to them. This is why I partnered with and highly recommend Scream Siren. This is the ultimate protection alarm. All you got to do is you pull on this cord. I'm not going to do it here because it's really loud, and a massive siren noise comes out. This will distract your attacker. Right now, you can get a risk-free 90-day trial, and you can get it for up to 50% off. Go to ScreamSiren.com to take advantage of that special offer, and information is also found in the description box below. All right, so let's dive into what on earth is happening with our United States economy. And a good question that really is going to be lingering in my mind is, do we have any gold there at Fort Knox left? I know that many conspiracies have been going up and down regarding Fort Knox, but if we have a congressman calling for our dollar being backed by the gold standard again, then we have to know exactly how much gold we have in the United States. Well, let's start first with an article that I came across on moneymetals.com. Take a look here, and let's dive into this bill that was introduced by our congressional leader. U.S. Congressman introduces gold standard bill. As inflation spirals out of control, America's currency would regain stable footing for the first time in half a century if a bill just introduced by U.S. Representative Alex Money becomes law. Now, here's the actual bill, because I like to go straight to the horse's mouth. Here's the House resolution, and they want to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold and for other purposes. And it states this in Section 1. The Federal Reserve note has lost more than 30% of its purchasing power since 2000 and 97% of its purchasing power since the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. Under the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation objective, the dollar loses half of its purchasing power every generation, or 35 years at times, including 2021 and 2022. Federal Reserve actions helped create inflation rates of 8% or higher, increasing the cost of living for Americans to unattainable levels. Since 2000, U.S. manufacturing employment has declined by at least 25%, after having remained steady at nearly 18 million jobs for more than 30 years. The American economy needs a stable dollar, fixed exchange rates, and money supply controlled by the market, not the government. Amen, amen, and amen. The gold standard puts control of the money supply with the market instead of the Federal Reserve, discourages excessive deficit spending and encourages the balancing of the federal budget. By the way, as a reminder, I know you know the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. They are not a federal government agency. They're a bunch of international, how I'm going to say this, international authoritarians, right? But it goes on. The Federal Reserve's trickle-down policy of expanding the money supply has primarily enriched the owners of financial assets, while it has endangered the jobs, wages, and savings of blue-collar workers. Restoring American middle-class prosperity requires change in monetary policy authorized. Amen and amen. And I think we absolutely need that change. So I believe what he's calling for in this particular bill needs to be done. Quite frankly, it won't be done. They won't do it because our Congress is a bunch of do-nothings. But if they actually cared about the United States dollars, we would go back to the gold standard. Now, he goes on into this in this report to call for auditing of our gold reserves, right? This is a great thing. I think we absolutely need it. And he says here in section 3, to enable the market and market participants to arrive at a fixed Federal Reserve note dollar gold parity in an orderly fashion during the 30-month period following the date of enactment of this act. The Secretary and the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve shall each make publicly available in both electronic and published format all holdings of gold, with a report of any purchases, sales, swap, leases, and any other financial transactions involving gold since the temporary suspension in August 15th, 1971. So much for temporary, right? Of gold redeemability obligations under the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. The Secretary and the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve shall make publicly available, in both electronic and published formats, all records pertaining to redemptions and transfers of U.S. gold in the 10 years preceding the temporary suspension in August 15, 1971 of gold redeemability obligations under the Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944. There you have it. Amazing. Fix a lot of the issues that we're having today, yet they're absolutely, unfortunately, not going to do it. But at least we have a leader willing to do that. I believe it was Ron Paul, who fought this a couple of years ago, trying to do something similar, and nothing was done about it then. Now, here's something that I want to add is back on June 9th, 2021, this same congressional leader went after Janet Yellen and asked her for an account on our gold reserves. Let me take you to the letter that he wrote, Janet Yellen, right? And I think this is important in light of his new bill. This was written June 9th, 2021 to Janet Yellen there, the Secretary of Treasury at the time. Dear Secretary Yellen, and this is from Alex, the same congressional leader. And he says, I write to you regarding U.S. gold reserves and the oversight activities of the United States Treasury. He goes, there is legislation pending that would improve security, accountability, and transparency as to America's gold. For example, I recently introduced H.R. 3526. This is something that he introduced back in the past. This one's a new one, but it was the Gold Reserve Transparency Act of 2021. This legislation would provide for the first time a true audit of gold owned by the United States in more than 65 years. And then he goes on to ask, with consideration, please give me answers to these questions. And he asked for questions regarding what purpose the United States, why is it being stored at the Federal Reserve? And then we have other questions here that he asked about how much is there, what's going on, and all of that. Now, of course, Janet Yellen did not give a direct answer in response to that. In fact, she did issue a reply, or her department did issue a reply. And here's that reply from the Department of Treasurer. And you can see this is in response to Alex Mooney's in response to his question to Janet Yellen, and this is given by the Deputy Assistant Secretary there. And instead of answering the question, here's what they state: the Treasury Department respectfully defers your questions related to U.S. gold holdings and inventory management at the Federal Reserve, the IMF, and other foreign and domestic financial institutions to those entities. In other words, we're not going to answer one dang question that you have, we're not going to answer it at all. You're going to have to go to those foreign entities like the Federal Reserve and ask them. Really? They're only the U.S. Department of Treasury and they have no idea? Really? I see. There's just wait. Shouldn't our Department of Treasury have that information? Or maybe they have it. They just don't want to give it. Again, is there gold left at Fort Knox? Well, we don't really know because no appropriate audits have been done. But I did find an audit report that they let out, right? Let's go to that audit report because I'm just curious. Oversight.gov. So here we have an audit report. Audit of the Department of Treasury's schedules of U.S. gold reserve held by the Federal Reserve banks as of September 30th. So here's what they claim that they have. And I scrolled down to about midway through the document there. You can see the scroll page there, but here it is. Here it is. Department of Treasury schedules of U.S. gold reserves held by Federal Reserve banks as of September 30th. And here's what they claim. U.S. gold reserves held by the Federal Reserve banks, $568 million-ish, plus a little bit. Woo! That's it? That's awful low. Sounds awful low. Let's go on over to Fort Knox, right? Let's go to the U.S. Mint. Here is usmint.gov. There it is. So, we're at the U.S. Mint here. And what did they say about how much gold they claim is at Fort Knox now, right? Let's just look into this. Scroll down a little bit. Fort Knox, right? It says the United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox, Kentucky is not a production facility. It stores precious metal bullion reserves for the U.S. and no visitors are permitted. Here it is. Amount of present gold withholdings, 147.3 million ounces. That's an awful lot. That means that's about, I don't know, top of my head, about $170-ish billion. Probably a little over that. According to that, though, Federal Reserve banks are reporting 568 million. Seems like 170 billion, 568 million. I don't know. What's happening to the gold? Is it there? Is it not there? Why can't we do an audit of it? Why would any congressional leader be against doing an audit of our gold? I would love questions from the other side or answers from the other side on that one. Meanwhile, our economy is falling to complete crap, and the International Monetary Fund is sending out cryptic messages. Take a look, gatewaypundit.com. IMF says the worst is yet to come, and 2023 will feel like a recession. It's just going to feel like one. No, we're in a recession. By definition, we're in a recession. But either way, they say it's just going to feel like it. And here's what they state. The IMF reports that the world's biggest economies will continue to stall in 2023, and the worst is yet to come. Here's what they actually put up on Twitter. This is by the IMF, right? Forecast growth, 1% for the US of A. You can see some negatives for Germany, France, Italy, some of the bigger countries there. And that's about it. China's the only one showing an okay growth there, China and India. Then it goes down to say this. Here's IMF. IMF chief economist says the world's three largest economies, US, China, and Euro area, will continue to stall. The worst is yet to come. For many people in 2023 will feel like a recession. Don't worry, it's just going to feel like it. Is that cryptic or what? Crazy days. Crazy days. Anyhow, this is a good report to share with you guys. I'd love to get your comments and concerns. Please make sure you're still subscribed to my channel here. They've been unsubscribing people. Also, get to Rumble. I'm on Rumble under Restricted Republic. Please subscribe over there. I'll leave a link in the description box below or in the comment section. You guys can follow that too. Anyhow, thanks again for tuning in. I love all of you. I'm Lisa Haven signing out.